Welcome to the Mile High podcast. Thank you for joining us. And remember, you always want to be tuned in to Mile High Tick. So make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can always be in the know. We put great new episodes each week with stellar chiropractors to help you grow in the philosophy, science, and art. Today, I am truly honored to welcome as a guest the one of the few people in chiropractic that goes by a one name and that people recognize, Arno Burnier, one of my mentors and my greatest influences in chiropractic, and who is graduate of the pioneer class of Sherman College, and also teaches the originator and teacher of the MLS programs. And I'm sure we will talk about that. And so when we're focusing on the art of chiropractic this year for Mile High, which in September, we moved the date to September 23rd, is all about the art of chiropractic. It's great to connect with Arno to discuss the art of chiropractic. Thank you for joining us today, Arno.
Danny, I appreciate you having me. It's great. It's great to connect with you earlier before the podcast so that we kind of catch up with our lives.
Yes, yes. And I will tell everybody here as we get started and have people get to know you a little bit better, because there are some people that don't know you and this is the first time they may have heard you when they listen to this podcast. My first introduction to Arnaud was him performing the wedding ceremony for my parents, and I thought, why is this French chiropractor performing a wedding ceremony? Is this legal? And I'm a high school teenager. And then later on, the next time I heard Dr. Arno, I was visiting Sherman College. I was not thinking of going to chiropractic school whatsoever. I was just visiting, and under the big top, I heard Reggie Gold and Donnie Epstein and Joe D'Onofrio Sr. and Arno speak, not necessarily in that order, but those four people. And by the end of that session, I was all right, I'm going to chiropractic school.
You were
so
cooked.
so a big influence on so many people's lives and me personally. Arno, can you share a little bit about how you found what influenced you to be a chiropractor?
Oh, this is a tough question because there's so much to cover. But basically, early on in my life, I knew I was destined to help people somehow in the healing work. Even as a child, I took care of, young wounded birds and animals, and I took care of my sisters, soothing her pain and headaches and migraines. So it was always in my field. However, like for many other people, I didn't know anything else but medicine. So I started in medicine, and then through different circumstances that I call the synchronicity of life and the blessing and providence of life, I was steered towards chiropractic, and ended up going to Sherman College in 1973 as a pioneer. And you probably know that I flew from Paris, France to Spartanburg, South Carolina to find out that there was no school. There was an idea of a school. Uh, but the passion that was there was so amazing from all the people that had gathered in Spartanburg, the teachers, the future students. It was so extraordinary that I thought this is the right place. And I felt it in my heart. And the passion that was ignited in me by my chiropractor kept being fueled by all those people that were so incredibly dedicated and passionate and in the vocation of chiropractic. So that's how I ended up in chiropractic.
And so that brings another question, which is, that's find your way to chiropractic. How did you have such a passion for the art of chiropractic? What fueled or inspired the passion for the art more specifically of chiropractic or influenced you?
That's interesting because actually my passion is for the philosophy of chiropractic.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started to share in my office the philosophy of chiropractic in many different ways, in a way that was practical, that was applicable for the public, using philosophical principle and then blending them in understanding of the physiology, the healing process, various biological processes in the body, I decided after a while to teach it outside the office. I was invited by students, by different chiropractors. So I had a great passion for the philosophy and still do. So what happened is I would go and schedule a seminar or set up a seminar at Life University or Sherman or Parker or whatever. And the attendance was not that good because it was philosophy. And philosophy had been stained with a stigma in the profession because of the evolution of the education. Who
Right.
needs philosophy? Who needs philosophy? It has to be science. So I decided, oh, they don't want to attend philosophy seminar. I'm going to start teaching an adjusting seminar and then infuse that seminar with the philosophy once the people are there. And that took off like a rocket.
Mm,
And
that's
I
excellent.
realized after that that people actually were very hungry for the philosophy, for an understanding of the foundational basis of chiropractic, but I could do it through interweaving through the seminar in adjusting.
Yes, I got it. Absolutely. And there's a special art of bringing teaching the art in coherence with the philosophy, because
Correct.
that's not always the case when people teach the art. Can you say
Correct.
something about that, about teaching the art in coherence with the philosophy?
Right. So what I feel is that people that practice chiropractic as a technique or even as an art, if they do not have the philosophy behind it, it's like sailing a boat without a rudder or a GPS.
Mm,
Basically, it's going to go wherever the wind blows, rather than steering a charted course and having a specific destination. So the foundation for me of the art of chiropractic is first and foremost to know what is it that we do and what is it that we don't do, and to have a very clear definition of our scope of practice. So according to the philosophy, our scope of practice is strictly to detect, analyze, locate subluxation, and clear the neurospinal system. And I want to emphasize the neurospinal system because the spine and the nerve system, the spinal cord, nerve root, meningeal system, are all intertwined and married to one another. When the spine moves, the spinal cord moves. When the spine moves, the meningeal system moves. When the spine moves, the nerve roots are being affected. So to clear the neurospinal system for the sole reason that doing so is very beneficial for a human being, it's beneficial for their lives, it's beneficial for their physiology, it's beneficial for their health, it's beneficial for the healing process. And that in and of itself is a very powerful, simple, single, valuable service. So that's what I feel is important as the underlying foundation of the art of chiropractic. So we teach it, and as you know, we are not the only one teaching it. We teach it from this perspective, from this foundation.
excellent, excellent. And I really appreciate that you emphasize the neuro, because as you know, and I know, and a lot of our listeners know, if you look at chiropractic education in the schools, and we don't have to talk about specific schools, but you look at the chiropractic in the schools, there's a lot of downplaying of the neuro part and really teaching the adjustment and the analysis as a musculoskeletal therapy, which is not what chiropractic is.
No, never was, and probably never will be. That direction of being neuromusculoskeleton or musculoskeleton therapist for backache and neck ache, that's a train that's going to park itself eventually because it competes with so many other disciplines that are doing exactly the same thing. Whereas if you stay with chiropractic, strictly clearing the neurospinal system because of it's beneficial for human being, then you are unique. You have a specialty that is unique to you and you alone. And in that way, you have basically a 360-degree population to reach because anybody and everybody can benefit from that service. You don't
Right.
have to be sick, you don't have to have a neck or pain, you don't have to have sciatica, you don't have to have a musculoskeletal problem. You can just come in, sick, well, old, young, doesn't matter. You can still benefit. And I always think it's the same thing with dentistry. You know, everybody can benefit from dental hygiene on a regular basis. By the same token, everybody can benefit from chiropractic care on a regular basis. And that I want to emphasize does not mean that you get adjusted necessarily. It means that you get checked and adjusted if needed. And that is a key emphasis that I want to make, adjusted if needed. The same way that with dental hygiene, you can have it on a regular basis. It doesn't mean that every time you go in there, they you, clean you, you're good to go. See you back in whatever for dentistry, it's every 3 months, 6 months,
Right.
whatever the
Right.
protocol is.
Before I ask you more, what briefly can you share a little bit about what MLS is and how people can connect with it and upcoming things, events, instructors? Can you share a little bit about that before we interview, ask more questions?
Great. First and foremost, what I would say, Danny, is that MLS is not a technique. It is an approach to adjusting. And it is an approach to adjusting that can be applied to upper cervical, knee chest, side posture, full spine, Gonstead, any approach, even network. It's a way to really connect with a human being, to read a human being, not a spine, not just a neurospinal system, not just a vertebrae, but a human being first and foremost. And then to acquire a place of total presence, inner connection with your heart, and then have a way to adjust structurally, and I want to emphasize structurally, taking the meningeal system into consideration to bring the entire neurospinal system into ease and to do it with high specificity and very specific art at tremendous speed. We have trained the body to create a neuromuscular memory for high velocity, lightning speed in adjusting. Yet those adjustments are extremely comfortable because of the way that the body has been positioned into a place of ease and allowing the neurospinal system to have the spinal cord and the meningeal system float in the neural canal so that the force can travel through the whole system rather than being localized in just one area. So that's essentially, in a very short version, what we provide.
Excellent, excellent. And what upcoming events? I know people's schedules and calendars have been unusual through this last year and a half. What events are coming up in 2021?
2021, I mean, people can look on the website, mlsseminars with an s.com. But we had Atlanta, we have Oakland, we have Dallas, we have Paris, we have Toulouse, we have Hamburg, back again to Atlanta, back to Oakland. So there is quite a lot of areas that we cover, and obviously somewhat restricted this year because of COVID-19, but we're doing our best to eventually, if Europe reopens at a greater level, we'll have Munich, we'll have Barcelona, England, Bristol in England, Amsterdam. We hope to open Amsterdam again. So yeah, we are moving.
Excellent, excellent. And so now you were mentored by some of the best. You were had the privilege to be around and honor to life. There's no accidents. To be around some of the best. Who are some of the most influential people in the art of chiropractic?
W. Sherman, as you know, or you may know, or may not know, he was a former director of the B.J. Palmer Research Clinic in Davenport, Iowa, when B.J. was alive. And he was very, very keen on delivering extraordinary upper cervical care. His struggle was lightning fast. His principle was solid. His analysis was solid. So he was a great influence. And then while at Sherman, since it was mostly when I was there an upper cervical school, even though we were taught somewhat full spine, it was mainly and dominantly an upper cervical school. What was wonderful, Danny, is to go into town and connect with Earl Taylor, Doug Gates, Don Thomas, many other chiropractors that were in actual practice in Spartanburg, South Carolina, or outside Spartanburg, and to see the reality of what we were being taught in school, to see it being applied in practice, no modality, strictly analyzing, detecting subluxation on a proactive basis, where a lot of the clients that we would see in those practices were people that came, they may have come originally with problems, but they still kept coming with their family, with their children to get checked on a regular basis. So as a student, we could see the validity of what we were being taught and how successful people were, chiropractors were in town practicing in that manner. So that was extremely valuable. Obviously, Reggie Gold was a wonderful adjuster, very smooth, great ease in the adjustment. He was a strong influence. And in the last few quarter of school, he took a group of us and said, this is mostly Sherman and Upper Cervical School, but I would want you to come out with the tools to also be able to clear the rest of the spine if needed. So we had a accelerated crash course with him in full spine. Then down the line, Donald Epstein was a tremendous influence. And I always mention, and Donnie knows that, I always say Donald Epstein has been to chiropractic what Einstein has been to physics. It truly opened up a whole new dimension, perspective, reality, awareness, consciousness about how to clear the neurospinal system. So he was a great influence. Um, and down the line, Sue Brown was also a great influence. I remember Stephen Duff coming to Sherman College. Clay Thompson coming to Sherman College, great influence too. But the dominant people were definitely Ly W. Sherman, Donald Epstein, by far.
That, and this is very important for people to hear, because they can go back and study from these other people as well. Like, there are things that they need to learn from Lyle Sherman that they can go back and research, and such, and Sue Brown and Donnie, and so many other people that you mentioned. Um, Going back to the
Let
current,
me
yeah,
interject something here for a second. In relationship to Ly W. Sherman, I think one of his greatest influence for me has been to visualize what was taking place in the neurospinal system, to visualize what was taking place between two segments, because at the time they used 3D X-rays, different X-rays with a box that created a 3D
right,
vision.
stereo.
And from that, I really took how important it was to visualize what is happening under your hands prior to delivering an adjustment. And that is one thing that we deeply, deeply emphasize in MLS adjusting seminars is you have to have a clear picture under your hands. And what I want to bring into this is that you probably know that in athletics, basketball, football, soccer, martial arts, visualization is key and is considered to be about 90% of the importance of a shot being made in basketball is to visualize it in your mind clearly before you even perform the task, even though you have trained your neurology and your muscle to do that throw. So we emphasize that very deeply. And Ly W. Sherman, for me, need to be credited as to his influence on me about the visualization.
Yes, and that's a good point in talking about the art of chiropractic. If someone wants to, they're a student, they're a new doctor, or maybe they're practicing 20 years, and they want to up their artistry and up their mastery of adjusting. What are a handful of keys? Like visualizing it, that's one, obviously. What else?
Well, we have had people that have been in practice 23 years. I think that's a chiropractor, one of the that has been in practice the longest that came to our seminar. We have many chiropractors that have been in practice 5, 10, 15 years, 8 years, 3 years. However, this man had a booming practice in Quebec, but he realized how much over the years he had slipped, and also how rough and rigid his hands were. And we really taught him to come in with such softness, gentleness, molding completely to the spine, to the neck, becoming one with the vertebrae. And then from that place, having great visualization, firing up at high velocity and introducing the force into the system. So that's maybe one of the dominant things that chiropractors that have been in practice many years are going to gain and are gaining, which is how to approach the body, how to really connect deeply with that person beyond just, oh, I'm going to adjust a vertebrae. No, how do we connect deeply? How do we become completely present and one with the system, one with the body, one with the vertebrae underneath your hands? And all of this with total softness, relaxation, molding completely to the system. So that's pretty much the upgrade that is available. And then obviously coming from an open heart, because I had that experience for a period of 3 months of my heart being so blown away, so blown open. And then I saw the effect of what happened when you approach a human being in an office as a healing facilitator, and when your heart is blown open. What instantaneously take place in the physiology of the person receiving your touch.
It's interesting as you say that. I remember something, and I'm sure you've heard this before. Uh, Donnie had said to me that Pasquale Sarasoli had said, which is that chiropractic is not done by hand only; it's done by heart.
There is a symbol of a profession, which is like a round insignia: head, hand, heart.
Mm,
We have
yes.
forgotten that the heart is a key component. Sure, the hands, the skills are very, very important. The heart is a key component. And for me, head represents alignment, completely alignment with spirit within, with your soul above, whatever you want to call it, with an empty mind. That once you are ready to deliver that force, your mind must be empty so that you become a vehicle.
Yes. Very much so, and that's also an ongoing process. An ongoing
Learning process,
learning
an ongoing process.
and slipping and checking for sure, too.
Yes. And
Um,
I believe that, when you look at the educational process, it's all left brain,
mhm.
it's all educated, it's all mind. And to take new graduates or people that have been in practice for a while and to be able to bring them back to how can you silence your mind? How can you be so present? How can you be so open hearted? Is a process, but once they get there, the joy and the blessing is extraordinary.
Yes, yes. Um, Technique is talked about a lot, and you mentioned, for example, MLS is not a technique, and also analysis is talked about a lot, but it's not necessarily analysis is not necessarily talked about a lot in many chiropractic schools, unfortunately. What can you share about the importance of analysis?
All right, first let me retrograde to technique. Chiropractic was never defined as a philosophy, science, and technique. It was defined as a philosophy, science, and art. A technique has nothing to do with the art of chiropractic. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't take a technique, such as Gonstead, for example, and then teach people that technique. And then the next step for them as an individual chiropractor is to use that foundation and grow, create, and acquire their own expression, their own artistic expression of that technique. That's what makes a great chiropractor. as long as people stay within a technique, they are in a box, they are limited, their creativity has been stifled. So that's an important part.
Yeah.
Analysis to me is critical. And I just saw a short video that you did a few days ago where you said, did this happen to you in your practice? Has this happened to you in your
Yeah, I
practice?
remember that one.
Am I the only one to which this happened in my practice? And I looked, this is interesting because I believe that what you brought forth, which is the fact that some chiropractors have absolutely no analysis, no way of pre-checking and post-checking, to give no recommendation, they just bounce on people's spine and then tell them, okay, you're good to go, is a travesty to our profession and to what's available. And it's shortchanging the public of an amazing potential that they could receive from chiropractic, the value of chiropractic. So we teach not directly at the seminar, but sometime if it's available and we have enough time, we will present it. But we teach it in a seminar called Spinal Biodynamic and Visualization, in which we teach an elaborate, extensive neurospinal analysis of a person's neurospinal system on the first visit, and then how to do a quick scan and monitoring pre and post adjusting every visit. So analysis is critical.
Yeah. And that's, you mentioned Reggie. Reggie had his vertebral, we call it, analysis with feeling the muscles. People don't even learn that. And then there's, you mentioned Lyle Sherman, the instrumentation analysis. I'm sure that impacted your ability to get better with your hands, as you know. And that's why, for example, at Mile High, we have so many. This year we're doing different perspectives and having somebody teach each of those different parts, not to their full thing. It'll be a small portion, a half hour introduction, because in chiropractic school, there's thousands of graduates graduating that never even heard those two things, like instrumentation or Reggie's vertebral palpation, that are such foundational things that help your analysis.
Right.
Uh, yeah,
Nick Spano, muscle palpation.
right,
There is,
exactly.
and even if those approach are a way to tune into the system and to learn to really pick up the tone, the vibration, what goes on underneath, and to clear it, but to have no analysis is, to me, is really insanity. Uh,
I know, and I know that video that you mentioned. It's painful when you have people come into your office and you see what they've been done, and you look at their spines and what they were told, and oh, you'll be fine. And go, I was like, this is not a clear nurse, and people not looking at, but they don't learn it in school, sadly. In many schools, some schools they do, okay,
right.
but gratefully some do. So then further talking about the art of chiropractic, um, if we are talking about it as an art, what are some things that then help the person? Like, you may practice MLS and Wade Port may, and it will be different. So how do they develop their own artist blend?
Okay, I think what is important is to take the foundation of what is being taught, the principle that are being taught, and then being able to go, huh, my hands are different than Wade's hand, that John's hand or Susan's hand. Therefore, I'm going to have to adapt to that. My body type, for example, I'm what we call a fire body.
Mm-hmm.
Wade, that you have met, is
Mm-hmm.
more like an earth water body.
Mm-hmm.
So his style of adjusting is going to be different than mine. So it's to take all of those components and also reading the person on the table. What is the dominant body types that I have on the table? What is the age of that person? What is the structure of that spine? Is it rigid? Is it flexible? Is it quote typical average? And then to take all of those components through your biocomputer and then honing in to doing your own art. And I frequently I show when I talk about the example, you can go to Les Beaux-Arts in Paris, which is an art school in Paris, very well known, and you will learn very specific technique in painting, whether it's painting with your finger, with a brush, with a knife, with a spray can, it doesn't matter. But as long as you stay within the technique, you will never become a well-known artist
Mm.
because you're not. You're a technician.
Yes.
And that's what it takes. It takes for people to step out, to open up the box, and to take all of this foundational information, blend it in, ingest it, and then express it out of themselves into their specific way of doing it.
Yes. Yes. Uh, in connecting before this recording, and you said your favorite quote: "Live your life by principles and not outcome." What do you like about that?
Tough one for people to digest because a lot of people say, well, I learn, live my life by principle, and my outcome are not that good. If I look at the people that have really influenced humanity, they have lived by principle, not outcome. Even though their life may have been shortened, some of them have been assassinated, many of them have been assassinated, yet they had not seen the outcome of the principle that they brought forth.
Mm-hmm.
But in time, those principles made a strong inway and impact on humanity. That's what I'm talking about. Live your life by principle, not outcome. And when you do that, you're actually not self centered or egocentric. You are totally altruistic because you are moving a principle forwards that can benefit and improve the quality of human life for humanity. So we may never see the result of the outcome of living our life by principle. But down the line, the impact of having done so can be enormous. So that's what I like about this quote.
Mm, very important.
And I want to say this. I think Tom Gilardi really could have gone, oh, I'm not getting the right outcome in my desire to write the profession from where it was going on a complete tangent. He was absolutely immutable and inflexible into sticking to the principle. But look at the impact that he has had over the years, not only on Sherman College, but on the profession.
Right.
How he has injected in the profession back principles that were lost when B.J. Palmer passed away in 1961. So live your life by principle, not necessarily outcome.
Mm-hmm. Which is also something I've heard you talk about before, which is a corollary is detachment and being detached from that.
Yeah.
I'm going to paraphrase you. It's something I heard you say that I think ties into this really well, and hopefully you describe it better than I do. Which I heard you say years and years or years ago, and you were talking about people being in practice and focusing on the health, the correct. There's a correction level of practice, and then there's a healthy spine level of practice, or focused practitioner. But then there's another area of a spirit level or soul level of practice. And I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly because there was maybe 10 or 20 years you talked about this, but I think this can help people in closing relative to the art. Do you remember discussing that?
Yeah, I think what you are referring to is a time when I talk about the level of service. Some people in practice serve themselves and they actually put money and business on the front end rather than people on the front end. Then the next level of service is to serve your practice. So you're serving your people, and now the byproduct of your service, of your caring, of your love for your people is the fact that you are making an income and that your business is running really well. The next level of service is serving the profession, being of service to the profession. The next level of service is to be of service to the principle within the profession. Because as you know, you can serve the profession within the politics of the profession, but that not necessarily serves the principle. within the profession. And then the last level of service is to serve the divine, your soul, what you're called to do in life. So I think that's what you're referring to. And in serving your soul, you serve on a spiritual level. So that's, I believe, what you're referring to.
And then that also obviously will make a difference in what your perspective is relative to as you deliver the art, who you're being.
Correct. And as you know, through your own experience, because you are serving the principal and the profession, and I'm sure you're serving probably also, and I don't know that because it's your own internal dialogue and internal reflection, serving your soul. But as you have stepped up into serving at a higher and higher level, what happened to your practice?
Right.
It exploded
Right.
invariably. The higher
Yeah.
you serve, the bigger your practice.
In the when you're focusing on something bigger than yourself,
Exactly.
makes a huge impact. And there's a place. I'll just say this because you brought it to my surface from Nate from you saying that. Yeah, is that after my you know medical uh, emergencies, and I call it my heart transformation. That after that, you reflect a lot more on, you know, um, getting is much less important. Getting
Get
is much less important, and giving is much more important.
correct.
Um, you know, for sure. That becomes something. They talk about it. Open heart is an open heart, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's amazing the moment so many chiropractors do a lot of things. They report a findings, their so-called lay lecture to get people, to get people, to get people. And the moment that they switch to, I just want to give of myself, I want to give of my understanding, I want to give of my knowledge, I want to give of the wisdom that I've gained through chiropractic, my understanding that has changed my life. The moment that people make that shift from getting to giving,
Right.
now something happened. Give and you shall receive, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Right. Yeah.
yeah.
Is there any last thing you'd like to share in this podcast episode?
I like to say that when you live your life by principle, not outcome, you may never be part of the club in the high level of the power to be within your profession, because anybody that lives their life by principle become a disturber. It challenges the status quo, it challenges the establishment, and you have to be willing to accept that. If you do anything for the sake of recognition, then your motivation is false. But if you do it for the sake of serving a principle, then you have an impact and influence.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much for your service, your impact on chiropractic and the profession. I highly recommend if people have not been to an MLS program, they do so. Go to mlsseminars.com. Um, any time that you can spend with Dr. Arno is time very well spent. Um, and we are so grateful for all that you've done for chiropractic over the years, and influences on myself and Rochelle, and so many people. You never know how far reaching, Arno. You never know how far reaching. And I will say, everyone,
Hey,
yes.
I'll return the ball to you. You're,
Yeah.
you're doing, you and Rachel are doing an amazing job and really having an impact and influence on the profession, serving a lot of people. So being from another generation than you and Rachel, personally, I'm very grateful, great appreciation for all the giving that you're doing.
Well, thank you, and people lit a flame, so we're just going to honor the people, what people have taught us, like you, and Gilardi and so many others. everyone, we look forward to seeing you in Colorado on higher ground as we raise up the art this year and people focus. And so at this time and what's going on in 2021, us being the best that we can in our presence in the art, that's why we focused on it. We said this will help people the most that you guys see in your community. So milehighchiroregistration.com. And as I said, hit subscribe. Don't make sure you never miss any Mile High Tick. We look forward to see you September 23rd weekend. And as we said, we really enjoy getting to connect with you each week via the podcast. Thank you so much, Dr. Arno.
Thank you, Danny.
Keep changing spines, lives, and minds with chiropractic.